The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Straight ahead on this edition of Perspectives, we go front and center with Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson. Topic of discussion, New York City, the balanced budget, and much more. Straight ahead on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Darren Jaime.
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life. What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Darren Hyman. Of course, we invite you to stay connected to Perspectives. You can do it a multiplicity of ways. Of course, you can watch us as you are now on Channel 67. Don't forget to hit us up on the World Wide Web, Verizon Fios, that's Channel 33. Also, our social networking sites. Catch us on Facebook and also on Twitter. There you'll be able to find out about what's happening on our show, be able to share about what you like, what you dislike, and even if you want to see a future episode, we get to hear your comments there. So share your perspective with us. It does make a difference with us. And so coming up on this edition of Perspectives, we go front and center with New York City government. The fact that the budget has now been balanced and passed, and we're pleased to now have with us joining in studio a familiar face. And I don't know, is this the second time?
No,
first time
about third or fourth.
As a council person?
No, first time as a council.
See,
yes.
I know what I'm talking about. Yes, the first time as council person here on Perspectives. We're pleased to have Vanessa Gibson, councilwoman, and from the Bronx, and we're glad to have her here with us. She represents Bronx District number 16, and first of all, welcome. That's why I had to be sure. I was like, my God, I should remember it.
I appreciate being back again.
Yes, yeah. This
in
time
a new role.
Yes. How's it going for you?
It's been great. It's very busy, much more of a local impact being in the city council, but I truly appreciate being a part of the new wave of leadership. 21 new members in the city council, and I was the very first, succeeding Helen Diane Foster in District 16. It's been a blessing. I appreciate the opportunity that Albany really gave me, and it's given me a great advantage being in the city council.
Give us a little bit about the budget, because that's front and center right now. The ability to have an on-time budget and then be able to pass it, given the fact that you have 21 new council members, what do you think that says about government?
Well, we're talking about the state budget that just passed on March 31st, and it was a $138 billion budget. And the city council, the mayor, as well as the speaker of the council really had an aggressive agenda for the city, and one of those was universal pre-K. We wanted to ensure that every 4-year-old in the city of New York had access to UPK, and the mayor had an aggressive plan in terms of charging the highest income earners in New York City, the wealthiest New Yorkers, a tax that would bring in about $530 billion. And instead of that tax, we were working with Governor Cuomo, Speaker Silver, Senator Jeff Klein, Senator Dean Skelos, and all of my former colleagues in the Assembly to really make that a #1 priority. The fact that early education is the foundation, and so many 4-year-olds need that critical quality education. So I'm really proud of so many of my former colleagues in Albany, because while we didn't get the tax, we got a commitment of about $340 million of dedicated funding for New York City for UPK.
When you look at your area and you look at the borough of the Bronx, how do you see things shaping out from the budget perspective coming back home here?
I definitely see things being a lot more intense, because we've all talked about the income inequity that we have, and the fact that the Bronx continues to be the highest county in the state in terms of unemployment. We're at 12%. So for me, it's almost an imperative, a moral obligation to ensure that everything I do in the city council is about empowering our parents and our advocates with resources and programs. And for me, jobs, economic development projects that really bring critical, long-term, sustainable jobs, not minimum wage jobs, but jobs jobs that can build careers for many of our young people. I live with that statistic every day. We see so many people to my office that are looking for jobs. They're underemployed, and they're really looking for opportunities of advancement. So to me, it feels like coming from the state and coming to New York City now is even more of an obligation because they can find me anywhere, and I'm no longer in Albany.
Mm-hmm. Give us a little bit about the winners in the budget. What would you say are winning items out of the budget that you can tout and say that's good for us?
Well, I certainly think children, public school children, were certainly the winners with the UPK initiative. There was a renter's tax credit for all of our renters in the city of New York, so I think that's an incredible win for many of our renters in the city. And then also there was a charter school amendment that allowed more of our charter schools to get additional funding to operate in many of our schools. So for the charter school advocates, that was absolutely a big win as well. And then many dedicated funding. For me, homelessness is very important. It's a crisis in our city. 53,000 families live in shelters every night, 22,000 children, unacceptable. And one of the things we were able to get in this budget was removing prohibitive language that denied New York City from establishing its own rental subsidy program. Like the Advantage program that we had, it was eliminated in 2011, and there was language put in state law that prohibited New York City from drawing down on state funds. And we worked with Councilmember Steve Levin, Ruben Wills, the Speaker. We traveled to Albany. We wrote letters. We did a resolution. We had advocates with us because they recognize that not only is long-term housing important, but subsidies that allow people to be able to afford their rent is equally important. So I'm very happy that Governor Cuomo and my assembly colleagues in the Senate, they recognize the importance and they removed that language. So now we can do our subsidy program.
You talked about the positives. What are some of the negatives that you see coming out of it? Because there's some, there's some winners and there's some losers.
Right. Well, I think from the perspective, if you look at many of our public school parents, they were not very happy with some of the charter school initiatives that were done. Many of them feel like this was an attack on the mayor and it took away some of the mayoral power that he has over New York City's public schools. And, I also think a lot of our immigrant students that were fighting for the DREAM Act, a lot of our dreamers, many in my community, it was an aggressive campaign each and every year to get the DREAM Act so immigrant students have access to higher education and tuition to go to college. That's a big loss for the Latino and the growing immigrant community. And I'm sad about that because the Assembly has always been a fighter for the DREAM Act, and we just didn't get the support that we needed in the Senate.
When you look at City Hall and you look at New York City now, what's the perspective change that you see? Because you looked at it from a lens before being in the Assembly.
Right.
Now you have the opportunity to look at it as a city council person and a different set of lenses, some similarities, but what's the difference?
The culture is different. The environment is different. With this new administration under the leadership of Mayor de Blasio, all new commissioners, there to me is a greater vision, and it's different. We're talking to each other now. So it's not like this tense relationship that the prior administration had with our former police commissioner, with Stop, Question, Frisk, with so many issues of racial disparities in communities of color, the educational system and the inequities we have in access to health care. I think from the perspective that I see coming from Albany and still having a lot of involvement with the city council under former Speaker Chris Quinn, I definitely see this as a change. People are being called, we're engaging in conversations, we're putting working groups together, and it's a reality. We're including the people that already needed to be at the table anyway, parents, advocates, our unions, and a lot of them were not at the table before when decisions were really being made.
And a lot of people feel as though when you look at the borough of the Bronx, we were not really represented too well, given the fact that you had Mayor Bloomberg, and he really wasn't a particularly staunch supporter of the Bronx.
Right.
Not seeing a lot of Bronx representation. Now that you have Mayor de Blasio, now you have Melissa Mark Viverito being the council speaker, do you feel like the Bronx is going to get a better share or a better look coming out of City Hall?
Absolutely. I've always said that I think the Bronx is the new Renaissance. We've seen major development and a huge swath of population grow in Brooklyn. We've seen it in Manhattan. We've seen it in Queens. And now I think it's the Bronx's turn. And it's even more of an advantage that our speaker, Melissa Mark Viverito, represents half of the Bronx in her district. So to me, it gives us an added voice. We've done a lot of work under the leadership of our Bronx Borough President, lots of new hotel projects, new development, new housing. People have been investing in the Bronx, and I think they're starting to look at us in a different perspective. No longer are we the forgotten borough, but we are the inclusive borough that welcomes people from all walks of life. And I think that's moving us in the right direction. And so I'm really excited, and I'm one of those that's always going to be a loud voice. If I feel the Bronx is being shortchanged, I will always speak up because that's my obligation to the constituents of my district.
Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson with us here. She's representing District 16. We'll continue our conversation with her in just a few seconds. We're going to take a quick break and be back with more perspectives right after this.
I'm lucky. Let me help you with that. I get to do something I love. It has nothing to do with touchdowns or titles.
Everybody bring it in.
I get to play a part in the life of someone just starting out.
How many of you think homework is just as important as teamwork?
I help keep kids in school,
Good.
and that's the name of the game.
My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United.
This was me. And Mom and Dad. And my big brother Alex. And Jack. This was the day that I learned that sandals get their name from sand. And that the ocean is bigger than all of us. This was the day we all got to forget that I was sick. This was my wish.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
I don't know what's happening. Start a new chat. What did I do? Okay. Wow. That is so weird.
Hey! Hi!
Oh my gosh. Hi! God, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm so nervous. Gia, you're so big. Come closer to the camera. Wait, now you're in my face. That was so good.
Continue our conversation here on Perspectives with Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson, and newly elected, part of 21 new city councilors taking seats in City Hall. And what's that like, the transition from the Assembly down to City Hall? Now, you know, it's a different seat.
Absolutely, and I have a bigger district. I have about 40,000 extra constituents in the council district, about 155,000 people, and it's much more of a demand on your time because there are no Albany trips unless I go up for a city initiative, and being in the district office and managing and budgeting that between the 250 Broadway office, City Hall, I was stated, having a legislative agenda, chairing a committee, obviously a lot of multitasking, but I'm very blessed because I have a great staff that I got from the Assembly when I was in the Assembly, as well as one of former Councilwoman Helen Diane Foster staffers as well. So I think it's been really good. Obviously, you know, I always long for, you know, the free time. Working on the weekends, working in the evenings is always a challenge, but to me, it's much more intense because I am home and I have a greater role in the city council now.
You hit the city council running, and you've already got some assignments that you have to contend with, and I know that you're the chair of the Public Safety Commission.
Yes.
And give us a little bit about that, because that deals with police-community relations.
Absolutely.
That is something that we have to deal with a lot in the borough of the Bronx, strained relations between police and the community. What are you hoping to accomplish?
So chairing the Committee on Public Safety is an incredible honor, and I'm really grateful and appreciative to the Speaker for appointing me to that committee. Very important committee, a lot of influence, a lot of work that needs to be done to address a lot of the strained relationships between law enforcement and community relatives and community residents. And I think Commissioner Bill Bratton, who's had an incredible long-term commitment to law enforcement during the, you know, previous administrations, to me brings a breath of fresh air. He's been engaging, he's been cooperative. I've had conversations with him, I've met with him and his team, and they really seem like they're bringing a different dynamic. They understand the past of what's happened in terms of the racial disparities and stop and frisk in communities of color, the fact that so many young men are being arrested for marijuana possession, small levels, schools. So they recognize that we have a growing problem, and I think they are willing and committed to helping us address a lot of those issues and really improve the relationships.
Do you get a lot of questions from your district and constituents within your district? Because Bill Bratton was a part of that stop and frisk when it was first instituted. Now the question of how does he go from being this guy who was very instrumental in starting stop and frisk and the implementation of starting stop and frisk, now to being the one that says, you know what, we're pulling back from that and moving the department at a new level. You do get a lot of criticism and concern by constituents, though.
From the older residents that know him, that know his history, I do get a lot of concerns. Many of the residents, particularly the young people that have been the victims of stop and frisk, they really want to see change. And I think Commissioner Bratton gets that, and it's also because of the leadership of the mayor, because it was a moral imperative that he made during the campaign to reduce and eliminate the overuse of stop, question, frisk, and the fact that we have an inspector general now that oversees the police department. I think it's a new dynamic, and it's recognizing that we have to do better. The broken windows theory, the fact that you are arresting young people and others for low-level crimes because you could be potentially preventing a larger, more severe crime, I accept, but I also want to make sure it's done right. We have major issues with homelessness on our subways. We have panhandling. We have jaywalking. We have young people being arrested for small possessions of marijuana. We have the raise the age factor, where we want young people to be prosecuted at 18 and not 16, and we're only one of 2 states next to North Carolina that still does that. So I think we have a lot of work to do. I'm really encouraged because the department has Operation Crew Cut. They have mentoring programs where they have older officers working with the new recruits coming out of the academy. So I think we're on the right direction to making a lot of change. We just have to see it for ourselves.
As the public safety chair, how much does a hands-on approach do you have when there are issues that do come up with police? And say, for instance, you might have a questionable police shooting or questions of police brutality or, simple resident concerns like we want to shut down the street for our parade or whatever.
Right.
Give us a little bit about how much of a hand you can actually play in that, or just accessibility to information.
Oh, okay. Well, while I'm not the mayor, but being the chair of the committee, I do speak on a frequent basis to Commissioner Bratton and all of his chiefs under housing, under the gang unit, community affairs, the detectives. And if there was an incident that came up, I would obviously be able to reach out to them and have a conversation. Also, as chair of the committee, I'm obligated to hold hearings once a month on a myriad of topics. And in February, we did Vision Zero in conjunction with transportation. And in April, we're doing Operation Crew Cut to address a lot of gang activity. So as I continue to have conversations, if I feel that there are other issues like out-of-borough homicides, like ensuring that we have sufficient school safety agents and crossing guards in our communities, like we're increasing the workforce of our department, all of those issues I will work with the department to address, and certainly be able to take a lot of the concerns that residents have as it relates to any of the operations of the police department.
In your district, you have the opportunity. You said you got 40,000 more residents you have to deal with?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a lot of people that you have to contend with. I know that you also have monthly meetings that go on at your office. Give us a little bit about that.
So former council member Reverend Wendell Foster and his daughter Helen Diane Foster established and maintained neighborhood community councils in the 16th district. And I made a commitment during my campaign last year that I would absolutely continue those councils. We have councils on parks, tenant block and neighborhood. We have an African Leadership Council for the growing West African community. We have a council on seniors, and we have a council on education and youth. And every month in my district office, residents, young people, CBOs, teachers, educators, clergy, we all get together and we talk about issues of importance in the district. We talk about policy issues, we hold events. We really want a way for residents to be engaged with the council member. So they're like my eyes and ears. If there's something going on with a particular park around sanitation, we'll bring sanitation in. If there's an issue with a school, we'll bring the superintendent in, we'll bring the chancellor in, we'll bring the necessary parties in to address a lot of those issues. So I am absolutely so supportive of them. I'm actually adding two, one for people with disabilities, because we want to be sensitive to those that have visual and hearing impairments, and also a community council on small businesses, because I want to develop merchant associations in many of our bids.
Talk to us. April 8th is a very important day for you. It's actually going to be a safety town hall meeting that Councilmember Gibson is holding, and inviting us to a Vision Zero safety City Town Hall meeting. What's going to happen there?
So Vision Zero is an initiative started by Mayor de Blasio, and it's a 63-point plan that focuses on reducing pedestrian injuries and fatalities across the city. Every time you read or turn on the news, someone's being hit by a bus, a truck, a car, a cab, or something. And we want to make sure that we focus on streetscaping, reducing the speed limit in the city, implementing more speed cameras, neighborhood slow zones, countdown crosswalks, pedestrian plazas, dedicated bike lanes and bus lanes. These are all components that can really reduce a lot of the crime. And working jointly with transportation, with Councilmember Idanis Rodriguez, we are having town halls in the entire city. Last night was Brooklyn, last week was Manhattan. We're going to Queens, Staten Island, and then the Bronx. This is a Vision Zero hearing next Tuesday, April 8th, that I'm doing on my own with Bronx DOT, NYPD, and TLC. And I want residents to please come out because it's important to hear input on what we can do to make their lives better. These are our streets. We all have to live and work, and we want them to be safe streets for everybody, not just for a chosen few, but for everyone. Pedestrians, bicyclists, cars, and those that are wanting to cross the street. We used to be able to have safety crossing in the crosswalks,
right,
and now the crosswalks are dangerous now, and that to me has to change.
So how optimistic are you through Vision Zero that we'll be able to change the culture, if you will, with many of these street-related crimes?
I'm optimistic. Obviously, it's a huge education component because many of us are embedded in bad behavior. We cross the street, we're texting, we're on the phone, we're not cognizant of crossing traffic. We have a lot of cars that do not yield to pedestrians. They don't use their turning signals. So I think it's a part of a larger framework that stimulates the conversation. We all have to play a role in this. I'm not scapegoating any industry. We have reckless drivers everywhere. And we also have pedestrians that need to educate themselves as well. So to me, DOT has a major role in streetscaping. There's a lot of things we can do in terms of enhancing streetscaping that would provide a lot of safety for pedestrians as they're walking or riding their bikes in the streets.
Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson here from District 16. Coming up after the break, she's going to let us know a little bit about if you're in need of a job fair. I'm going to let you know about that when we return. Get some final comments from her right here on Perspectives.
Hands can do incredible things. Now they can even help save a life with hands-only CPR. If you see an adult suddenly collapse, just call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of the chest until help arrives. Learn more at handsonlycpr.org.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did. Are you on your way to the mall? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
All right, give me a spot. You know my motto, safety first.
They could be dangerous. I think we should call animal control.
Animal control?
To be safe.
Don't worry. I got this. It's a new motto.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Being a dad can be tough.
No. What do you mean she's not coming?
When's the fairy princess coming?
Any minute now.
But when you're willing to do anything...
It is I, Groogs Zinkerbell. Okay, time for cake.
It's always worth it.
I know it's really you, Drew. I'm just pretending for the other kids.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Back here on Perspectives, Darren Jaime here with you, and our guest, Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson, sharing a little bit about what's happening in her district. Now, if you are unemployed or you are looking to switch jobs, careers, want some more information, Councilwoman's got a job fair coming up.
Yes.
April 17th.
April 17th is a Thursday from 10 to 2 at the Harriet Tubman Charter School on Boston Road. Working with the Bronx Borough President, the Martin Luther King Nonviolence Resource Center, Morris Senior Revitalization Corporation, and so many others. We have about 30 employees that are already confirmed, and we want people to come out. We want them to have their resume, dress professionally, and be prepared to go on an interview. It's really important for me to recognize that jobs are always the critical component, the social job. That really makes a difference in the lives of so many people. So that's just one of many. We'll have other job fairs throughout the year, but this one is Thursday, April 17th from 10 to 2.
People are hiring at these job fairs?
Yes, they are. We checked.
Okay.
Yes.
Because, you know, sometimes that's oh, what's a job fair? They talk about we'll get back to you.
That was a criteria.
Okay, good. So talk about, before we get out of here, you got some work ahead of you.
Yes.
City Council has a budget that is due July the 1st.
Yep.
Where do we stand with that? We know what all the Assembly has done, and they've done it up in Albany. Are you guys going to be able to meet July 1st budget?
I expect we would. We've always, in the past, passed an on-time budget in the City Council. Our budget is about $70 billion, and a lot of that are critical commitments to education, to public safety, to housing, domestic violence, and so many of the social service programs that I think are important to my district. And we've started having preliminary budget hearings based on the mayor's preliminary budget in March. So I've had my hearing with the police department, the 5 district attorneys, the special criminal justice prosecutor, as well as the mayor's director of criminal justice, because we also focus on alternative programs, domestic violence, our family justice centers. All of those programs that are initiatives of the City Council come to my committee. And over the next couple of months, we will be prioritizing now. As a member of the Bronx delegation, we want to make sure we support Bronx institutions and our colleges, our cultural institutions as a borough, and we make sure the speaker understands that those are priorities in terms of dedicated funding through the speaker. And then also as a council member, I have the ability to fund CBOs on capital, on expense, projects that are very important to the district. Just as my predecessor has always done, I expect to continue a lot of the funding for those programs. And, you know, we're still having conversations. There's a rules committee that is undertaking hearings to find out how we're going about giving out the money. So previously it was under the leadership of Chris Quinn, and it was based on your relationship with the speaker. You got more money if she liked you. And so under Speaker Mark Viverito, we're either looking at a needs-based approach, or we're looking at equal funding across the board between all 51 members. So right now we're looking at good government groups that are coming to us about suggestions, but at the end of the day, we still will have something to give out, and we're working with all our CBOs now to make sure that they are on time to submit all the necessary paperwork.
Are you hopeful that the Bronx will see major delivery by way of resources and allocations here?
Yes, I am, because we have dynamic members of the Bronx delegation. We have seasoned veterans like Jimmy Vaca, Maria Del Carmen Arroyo, Annabelle Palmer is our chair, Andy King has been serving for a year, and then you have the new members, myself, Andy Cohen, and Richie Torres. And I think all of that put together brings a greater force in terms of partnership. We recognize what has been done in the past, and we are absolutely committed to fighting on behalf of all of the Bronx, and that's what we're going to do.
Real quick. Biggest surprise that you've had in the City Council so far?
The busy schedule I have, the fact that there are like 50 groups that want to meet with me at a time, and everyone wants to meet with me, and finding time to multitask. That to me, it's always a challenge for me, multitasking, but I think it's even more of a greater challenge now.
Welcome to the City Council.
Yes.
Council member Vanessa Gibson, District 16. Thank you for coming to share with us. And that about wraps it up for this edition of Perspectives. I'm Darren Jaime. Thanking you for watching. Be sure to share your perspective with somebody else, because it just might make a difference in their life. Till next time we meet, take care and God bless.